On this day last year, the Boston Celtics eliminated the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 7, 112-96. Giannis shot just 7 for 17 from the field and scored 22 points, while 3 Celtics scored over 20. Terry Rozier, Al Horford led the way, scoring 26 apiece. It's round 2 between these two teams in round 2 of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Boston on the road in Milwaukee, and the Bucks, they had the best record in the NBA, the only team with 60 wins this year. As the quest for the championship continues, it's only right that we have 2 champions here with us this Sunday afternoon. Caron Butler, Derek Fisher to my left. I'm Chris Miles. Let's bring it around the horn, fellas. There we go. 2 round 2 series get underway this Sunday afternoon. Bucks and Celtics playing about an hour, while the Rockets and the 2-time defending champion Warriors take the court at 3:30. Winning on the road in the playoffs, such a tall task. Do you like the Rockets or the Celtics, the better opportunity to get the job done in Game 1?
That's
a tough one.
Yeah, you know what? But I would have to say the Rockets, just because I think having Chris Paul back, and a healthy Chris Paul, and having that in your belly for all this time of the unknown of what happened with the hamstring situation last season. So to have him back out there, I think that they have a strong chance at stealing a home game from the Warriors.
Well, what do you think, Fish?
I tend to agree. I do think, and I know, it's hard for Caron to say the Bucks might get snuck today. It's hard. You got to go home. You know what I'm saying? But I agree on the Rockets situation, but I do think the Celtics have an opportunity today with the Bucks. They've had some time off, and I think this Celtics team they're coming around. So both games
at the right time
today,
too.
But I think the Celtics could sneak one.
So that's the question of who could. How about the sense of urgency for the Bucks and the Warriors? Who has it more on this as the home team in this series for Game 1? Who do you think has more pressure in trying to win at home to start the series?
I would say Milwaukee. I think the Warriors can win anywhere at any time, even if they do lose a Game 1 on their home court, because they can go into anybody else's building. But I think Milwaukee has a sense of pressure to protect home court. Winning 60 games this year, that's what they fought for. I'd say Milwaukee needs to for sure win today.
I totally agree, because the Warriors are proven they can win anywhere, anytime, whatever scenario or situation, whether it's down 3-1, 3-2, whatever the case. But the Bucks, you want to continue to protect that home court. You fight all season long to have that. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that time being off. They swept through Detroit through that series, and the Boston Celtics, still had some games, and it was a little tug-of-war situation. But, with all that rest, it's going to see who's been the most rustiest.
Hey, you said the Milwaukee Bucks being at home, early start for them, so let's welcome in Jared Greenberg, who's in Milwaukee. Jared, noon start locally for the Bucks. Have they changed things up to get ready for this one?
Well, it's interesting hearing Caron talk about all the rest versus rust conversation. Both of these teams have had extended time off. 6 days since the Celtics last played, 5 since the Bucks swept through the first round, taking down the Pistons in 4. But both these teams have experience playing at this time. Now, keep in mind, 1 Eastern, noon local here in Milwaukee. Brad Stevens told us just a couple of moments ago, if you're not ready for this, regardless of the time, then it doesn't matter what time the ball would go up in the air. If you're not ready to play, it really doesn't matter for you. So he thinks his team is focused. This is the 3rd game out of the last 5 games that they've played that'll be an early start time. So even though players are creatures of habit, I think both teams are confident that their guys will be ready.
Jared, you mentioned Brad Stevens, and in a sense, this is the 2nd straight year that he's facing these Bucks and Giannis, but they're a completely different team if you look at how they performed in the regular season. What is he saying about facing this Bucks team as opposed to facing them last year?
Well, Coach Stevens couldn't be more complimentary of Giannis Antetokounmpo. He says in his mind, Giannis was the league MVP this year. And he says when great players take the next step, that's what really helps their team. And he says great players have the ability to continue to improve in all facets of their game, and that's exactly what Giannis has done. He says he has gotten so much better in so many different areas of his game that makes him even scarier to face this year than he did last year. But he said maybe the most important thing that the Bucks have done to get Giannis better is put the perfect pieces around him this year. As good as Giannis has been, the team around him is the right type of roster to complement him.
Each of these teams have glue guys in the backcourt that have been out, and Marcus Smart for the Celtics and Malcolm Brogdon for the Bucks. Brogdon's supposed to come back in the second round. What's the latest on those two guys?
Well, Malcolm Brogdon, again, is not going to play the first 2 games of this series. He has, according to Mike Budenholzer, played some 5-on-5 recently, but Coach Budenholzer nor anybody from the Bucks was ready to say when exactly he will be able to return, if indeed it will be Game 3. He'll be a key piece to this team whenever he is indeed, as you see him warming up out there right now here at Fiserv Forum. But Sterling Brown will remain in the starting lineup for the Bucks while he gets ready to come back. Now, in terms of Marcus Smart, so there is absolutely no timetable set. We know he will not play today, and the team isn't giving much in terms of optimism or pessimism. They just don't know at this point when he's going to be able to return from an injury that is so unique. Smart suffered a torn oblique that so few players ever in the history of any sport, let alone the NBA, has had to deal with. They do feel confident in speaking with people around the team this morning here at Fiserv Forum that if anybody's able to return from this type of injury and return to form, it is the Bulldog that is Marcus Smart. So when that will happen, not sure. Brad Stevens did indicate today, and he reminded us of his statement from back when they announced the injury during the last week of the regular season, that it was a 4 to 6 week timetable. And at that time, Stevens said, and he reiterated today, that he would be shocked if it was closer to 4. Rather, he thinks it'll be closer to 6. And the 4-week mark for Marcus Smart to return is a week from tomorrow.
Wow, so it seems as if Marcus Smart is still a few weeks out, and that means this week of rest for these two teams seem like it's been a little bit more critical in the sense of trying to get healthy. Who do you think's benefited more from the 6/7 days off between the Bucks and the Celtics, who last played on Sunday and Monday?
I would say there's no question that it's the Boston Celtics. Even though Milwaukee's had their own bumps and bruises like any NBA team, Giannis has had a handful of injuries that he's had to overcome throughout the course of the season. But you're dealing with a Boston Celtic team a handful of injuries that he's had to overcome throughout the course of the season. But you're dealing with a Boston Celtic team with Al Horford, who's battled through a knee injury all year. Kyrie Irving has this chronic knee injury that's bothered him his entire season. It may bother him for his entire career. You've got several other guys who have dealt with injuries that have cost them time. I can't see any other way that it helps the Celtics more than it helps the Bucks.
Jared Greenberg, stay warm. I see you wearing a sweater. It's almost May, my friend. I know it's cold there in Toronto.
It's snowing, brother.
It's
Milwaukee, rather.
Hashtag layer up.
Layers. Get you a Kringle.
I will. And Karan, I'll bring you back one, I promise.
Appreciate you.
Jared, take care. The Bucks and the Celtics. Eric Bledsoe. Will he be one of the players that you expect to be a X factor, a guy to step up in this series? We discuss next. You're watching Game Time. So much is made about Giannis's inability to make three-pointers, and rightfully so. How about this as part of the discussion, though? During the regular season, he led the NBA in and ones. He had 99 of those, 27 more than James Harden. He also took and made a career-high 52 three-pointers. So, Karan, should this be factored into the equation? We discuss Giannis' struggles from long range, the fact that he's able to create these old school three-point plays.
Man, that's an amazing stat. Big ups to you for coming up with that. I would have to say so. Me and Fish was just going back and forth off camera, just like, what is his free throw percentage for the season? That's amazing because
73%.
73% able to knock down the free throws, and that's what separates him from the pack. So it should equivalent to being able to hit a perimeter three.
And I think in addition to it, 73% free throw shooter, so he's making most of his free throws. But I think what it does for the Bucks is allow them to get their elite defense set. They're leading the postseason so far with 8.8 blocks per game. They shoot a high percentage from the field. And whenever Giannis can get out in transition and play at the pace that they like to play at, they're even more dangerous. So I think getting to the free throw line, the way he creates opportunities, it allows them to be even better than they already are.
And it makes sense that while his minutes are down, he's averaging career high in points and field goal percentage. So, Karan, for the Celtics, who did a very good job at defending him last year in the playoffs, what's their approach this year in the postseason?
Well, they're going to do it by committee, and you're going to see a wall built around Giannis. Hey, look, no guy on that roster in the association can guard him man to man. But what you're going to see is, multiple people coming, and you're going to see Al Horford being the ultimate guy because he's able, from a physical standpoint, to kind of move and stick with him for the most part. But, like I said, it has to be done by committee. You have to take away a ton of real estate. You see 3 bodies right there in the pick and roll situation. Giannis, Al Horford, the designated defender on him. Try to make it difficult for him. Try to entice him to shoot jumpers instead of going downhill and being in that situation. And look, he's going to be in a mismatch situation for the most part because he's going to get pick and rolls. He's going to separate and get switch outs with guys like Kyrie and Jason Tatum and so on.
Fish, what we didn't see in that situation is something that the Bucks have become incredibly efficient at, and that's kicking out for three-point shots. They were second in the league in three-point makes per game. Will this series hinge on who defends the three-point shot better?
In my opinion, it will. I think both teams at times, when they're not shooting the three well, really have a hard time scoring. They don't move the scoreboard as much as other teams if the threes are not falling. As you see here, both teams defensively holding teams around 33%, which is a good number. But I think for the Bucks to be successful, they take a few more threes per game than the Celtics, and I think they're going to need to make a few more. I think in possession games, late clock, the Celtics have the advantage when you have guys like Kyrie and Tatum that can get their own shot at the rim or from the perimeter. So I think the Bucks need to really shoot the three well in order to win and take some threes away from the Celtics.
Last year in this series, it was Terry Rozier who had the signature play on Eric Bledsoe that we remember as being, wow, that's the moment. When you look at the guys in this series, outside of Giannis and Kyrie, we know those are the usual suspects, but who do you anticipate, maybe Gordon Hayward, maybe Eric Bledsoe, as being guys that can be that person to have the signature game or the signature moment in this series?
I mean, in my opinion, those are the two guys to watch. Gordon Hayward is starting to look like the Utah Jazz Gordon Hayward. He's getting more comfortable finishing at the basket. He's getting to those mid-range pull-ups that he was such an elite scorer at his entire career so far. Eric Bledsoe, to me, has been the X factor almost on every team that he's been on. He's a guy that can play at an elite level at times and then have some of those nights where he leaves some greatness on the court that he didn't access. And I think if he can play at a high level, take the challenge defensively on Kyrie, but also make timely shots, I think he can be a guy that can really secure the Bucks in this series. And we're going to need to see a couple breakout games from Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, I think Eric Bledsoe is going to, be the best possible version of himself. I feel like prior to this season, he had some goals, but now he's on the mission. And the ultimate mission is to win a championship. He's been rewarded a heavy payday. Again, blessed. He's in good health right now. And then he's re-energized and remotivated with that display last season in the playoffs, where Scary Terry came out and got the best of him. And as a competitor, that's my young boy right there. That was my rook. So as a competitor, I know he wants that moment back and that stage back. And what better stage to do it in the second round of the playoffs?
One of the things that Milwaukee likes to do, they like to play fast, get up and down the court. How much of a factor will that be in this series if they can't set that pace or if they can set that pace?
It could arguably be the most important factor. The Bucks are better in transition because their best player is a guy that needs to get downhill. He's not a perimeter shooter. He's not going to beat you from the three-point line. So the more times, as you see there, the Bucks are in transition. The more possessions they have, they are going to be the better team. So it is important for the Bucks to defend at an elite level and get out into the open court and keep that pace really high throughout the entire series.
I haven't seen multiple situations where people have been successful in getting the Bucks in the half court and Giannis in the half court where you have all eyes and bodies in that wall where he can't really do too much. So like you touched on earlier, they don't have multiple guys that can go out there and create gamers like Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, all that. You have guys that play extremely well off one another, so it's going to be interesting.
Well, certainly interesting. Two series starting this Sunday. Kevin Durant, 50 points the last time we saw him on the court. What can we expect from the Slim Reaper in the start of round 2. That's up next on Game Time Live.